Welcome Strathcona County residents, business owners, and everyone that is viewing from abroad to the 2020 State of the County Address for Strathcona County. My name is Todd Banks, and I'm the Executive Director of the Sherwood Park and District Chamber of Commerce, and it's my privilege to moderate today's event. I will introduce Mayor Frank, and he will deliver his message. Then Mayor Rod will answer questions from participants. I ask you to write your questions in the chat box, and I will facilitate a Q&A session. So let's begin. Mayor Rod Frank was elected to his first term as mayor of Strathcona County in October of 2017. Rod has 3 years of experience in law and business and was raised in the county after moving here with his family in 1963. Rod is proud to be a champion of fiscal responsibility, keeping his eye on the bottom line, and a practitioner of evidence-based decision-making. He is passionate about working with council to lead Strathcona County towards a future of continued prosperity and becoming Canada's most livable community. Mayor Rod Frank, welcome, and please proceed.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here with you to discuss the State of the County 2020. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this virtual luncheon via Zoom. And this is the second time in just 3 years that we haven't been able to hold this address where we normally do, which is the Agora at County Hall. And it's because in 2018, as everyone will recall, we had explosions. And this year we're dealing with COVID. And we're doing it virtually. And I'm not doing it in the spring, I'm doing it in November, 10 months later. So all this highlights the disruption that our community has been under. So I want to begin by thanking our citizens, our county staff, and the public, the council, for your continuing to make this community better despite the challenges that we face, and an outstanding job by all. Let me also thank everybody who's tuning in today, and many of my regional colleagues, my council members, MLAs, members of the public, of course. And I can't name all the dignitaries because we don't actually have the list because of COVID and the way the registration process worked. But thank you all for tuning in. What would you do anyhow? You got to have lunch, so what the heck. But here we are. Where are we going in 2020? Well, I don't have to tell anybody that 2020 is been one for the ages. Enormous challenges. On top of COVID, we've had a recession. We've had depressed oil prices. We've had provincial austerity. So all of that has to be dealt with. And how does council do it? Well, we have a strategy and we have a vision in place. And council put that in May of 2018, shortly after we came into office. And we have 8 priorities that we focus on. And we've actually prioritized those. Many communities don't have a vision. Those that do don't prioritize. But we start off with a diverse community, sustainable infrastructure, municipal infrastructure, and a diverse economic base. And that will continue to guide us, pandemic or no pandemic. So I can't do any address, of course, without speaking to COVID and its effect on our community. And it's been a tough year. And what has that meant for Strathcona County Council? It's meant in our governance and our administration. It means that we've had to focus on public health. And we have daily conversations with Alberta Health Services. It means that we have a role in providing economic aid to citizens and to business. And we do that through deferrals and taxes and utilities and having responsible tax structure. And we have to provide timely communications. We have to establish task forces, and we've done that to guide us to come out of this pandemic. And we're keeping the economy open. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of plates that we're spinning. On top of that, the second wave is here. And there's COVID fatigue. Now, regardless, and we can all see the numbers spiking in not only Strathcona County, in Alberta, and across the Western world. And Along with that, more importantly, is hospitalization usage is going up and ICU usage. And regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, regardless of your thoughts on masks or public health measures, we all have to unite in the fact that we may have to access a hospital. Anybody can be in a car accident. Anybody can get a serious health diagnosis. So despite the fatigue, and I know it's fatiguing, but we have to keep up that fight. Very important. And that's what it's going to look like for the next couple months. Now, let me talk a little bit about finances, turning the page here, because we have this vision, but without the budget to enable that vision, it's just words on paper. So I can tell you that, relatively speaking, and even in absolute terms, we have very strong finances in this county. This is the result of prudent decisions by this council and previous councils. So our debt service ratio is at 5%. That means 95% of the tax dollar is going into municipal services and it's not going to banks. We've delivered a tax cut over the last 3 years of this term of minus 1.35%. We have not increased taxes, we've decreased them. Very few communities in Alberta, probably the entire country, can say that. And we continue to use tools like priority-based budgeting to make sure our tax dollars are going where they're most valued by the community. So why do we do all that? Well, we want to raise the quality of living. We want to raise the standard of living in this community. And that's why we focus so much on these financial measures. And we're not standing still. Council has directed administration over the course of the next year to use these financial tools like priority-based budgeting to ensure we're reallocating from lesser valued services to higher valued services, so our budget's sustainable and so that expenses don't get out of hand. Now, I'm just going to turn briefly to some of the results. What have you done for us lately, Council? Well, you've had a very busy council, and let me start with transit. It's one of our marquee services. It's highly valued by the community. It has very high service standards. It's got an 80% approval rating. So we've put together a 10-year master transit plan to ensure that's preserved. And we've expanded rural busing. We've expanded mobility busing, and that's busing for seniors and for people with disabilities. We've put a lot of energy into regional collaboration. We've invested in our relationship with Fort Saskatchewan. I can see Mayor Ketcher joined us. And we're also putting a lot of energy into our relationship with Sturgeon County. We have a lot of similarities with these communities, and the taxpayer wins because we learn from each other's expertise, and we deliver services at a lower cost because we spread it across a wider base. We also work very hard in the Edmonton Metro Region Board, and there's 13 communities that make that up. And the same thing, we're trying to plan good land usage in the region. We're trying to keep servicing costs as reasonable. And at the same time, we're preserving what's unique about Strathcona County. So that's the balance we're trying to hit in these organizations. Now, we're just not an urban community. We're also a rural community. We are specialized. And therefore, we have to pay attention to the rural parts of our county. We've done that. We've boosted recreation funding at Moyer Hall in our Drawson. If you haven't been out to our Drawson lately, it's worth a look. There's a new spray park there, new skate parks going in. So lots of neat development there. We've put a lot of energy into a multi-purpose ag facility. We've enhanced our rural roads master plan. And that's to improve roads in the rural parts of the county. So a lot of work going there. Also county-wide initiatives. We've improved governance of the Beaver Hills Biosphere. That's a UNESCO recognized geographic area within this county. And we've created a society to make sure that governance is carried out at the right level. We've implemented a 12-year recreation strategy that's had input 34,000 citizens. We've empowered our social service nonprofits with funding so they can do their jobs. We remain top tier for residential builds, and I'll talk about industrial later, but residentially, we're always in the top 1 or 2. And I just looked at the last 2 quarters, and that's true through the last 2 quarters. Center in the Park continues to flourish, and we've refreshed the plan for that area. And we have completed a 10-year tourism strategy. I think that's the first in the county. And I have to give a special shout out to staff who've enabled all this during the pandemic, during the 2018 incident. They've shown incredible resilience. Services have continued on seamlessly. So I would say hug a staff member. You can't because it's COVID, but tip of the hat if you see them. Going forward, we're going to continue to focus on our vision of being the most livable community in the country. And to enable that, importantly, we've hired a new Chief Administrative Officer, Daryl Reed. Daryl's coming in, implementing positive change. He's focused on employee engagement. He's focused on customer satisfaction. Daryl's giving more life to our 30 by 30 strategy, $30 billion of investment by 2030. We still think that's achievable. And that, again, is to raise the standard of living, to raise the quality of life. It's not just to have a lot more activity here. There's an end goal for the citizen. Our red tape reduction task force is also something we worked on. I want to thank Todd Banks and the Chamber for contributing on that. So Todd, that is an overview of our vision, what COVID's meant to us. And I think I'll have more questions on that, what we've accomplished over the last year and a half, and where we're going. I was at a talk recently, very good speaker, and he said, the feds have all the money, the provinces have all the power, and the municipalities have all the responsibility. And I can tell you, your council feels that responsibility in the age of COVID. The surge is on, but we got to stay the course here. And the vaccine's coming, but I think it's going to be tough through January, February, most likely. That is 2020, Todd. Governance is strong. Our administration's committed. Our finances are sound. Thank you. I'd love to take questions.
So thank you, Mayor Frank, for your address. It is a very different world we live in today due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Could you please give us some insight on how this pandemic has affected you and the rest of council to perform your duties in comparison to a pre-COVID world? And before you answer that, I'd just like to remind people that they can ask questions to me in the chat box, and we will open up to questions from the viewing audience after you answer your question, Mayor Frank.
Sure. I should also apologize for my straggly beard, but my excuse is that was for November, and give an excuse not to shave, I suppose. Now, what has the pandemic meant for council? Well, it means we've had to listen a lot more. It means we've had to adjust on a dime. In fact, I remember the night, March 6th, I think the NBA was canceled, and I thought, oh, this is serious. They're canceling a sports league in North America. Things are going to change fast, and they did. By that weekend, we were shutting down recreation. All that to say is that we've had to adjust very quickly. Now, luckily, we had our emergency management agency in place since January. We were way ahead of the curve, and Chief Hutton and his staff had already roughed in a blueprint. And so we were really much in listening mode from the health authorities, and we've tried to implement solutions that are not politicized, they're medically based. So shout out to Chief Hutton and to council that did not expect this. I mean, who did, right? So Todd, a lot of listening, and then just from what I'd said earlier, of course, emphasis on public health, emphasis on economic aid, communication, and of course, keeping the economy open. And I want to say shop local.
Thank you, Mayor Frank. I have a question here in chat, and it is asking about business tax deferral for Strathcona County businesses. Uh, Brad Severin would be interested to know if there's a plan during this pandemic to continue on with the similar program like you had in the past.
Yeah, we had a tax deferral. We're certainly open to it. The uptake wasn't as strong as we would have thought, but I'll take that feedback. And we are really focused on our local businesses. One thing, Todd, we find is that many of the property taxes, for example, are going to organizations outside of Strathcona County. Quite often they're nationally organized corporations that have real estate in Strathcona County. And we don't find that's necessarily the best way to get aid to our own local businesses. And so certainly open to it. Uptake wasn't that great, but we'll keep an open mind on that.
Thank you. I do have a question about the budget, and if you could comment on any of the highlights of the budget. And I know it's not approved yet and there's still more debate to be had, but are there any highlights that you could tell residents of Strathcona County and the business community about at this point, knowing that it's not an approved budget yet?
Well, I think a highlight definitely is that at least we're not facing a financial calamity in this county. Now, I say that, and I really quickly say, there's some financial shocks we might take in the spring. The province is going to deliver a budget. We're not immune to what they say in there. The economy itself is going to have a say in how our finances look, because our assessment base is market-based. You know, COVID-19 and energy, we're a huge county for energy and industrial development, and also just COVID itself. I mean, it increased expenses by 11 million to the end of 2020, and we've actually got a grant to cover about 90% of that. But yeah, so there's some, and that's the thing, we're governing with one eye to 3 months down the road, but we're looking right here. And I would say right now we are strong, and we can even deal with those revenue shocks I just spoke about within reason. But the highlight would be that we've got a great industrial base here, a great residential base, and therefore we can continue, because we've grown our assessment base. This model of a specialized municipality has proven itself in spades. And we're happy to lend that expertise to other municipalities. But I really want to say it gives us the ability to not only plan the future, but deal with unexpected events. And this is a 1 in 100 year event. And you know what, right now, yeah, okay, we got this.
Wonderful, thank you for that. I want to touch on a little bit about mental health. And I'm saying that because as the second wave has come and it's been very severe, even more numbers of cases than the initial pandemic numbers in the spring. I'm wondering if you could just talk a little bit about family and community services and the mental health services that they can provide at this time, because it seems like there's a lot of stress and anxiety out there right now, and that department does so much to help with that. And maybe you could let us know what they can do to help residents of Strathcona County.
Absolutely, great question. And that department's headed by Bree Claude. Bree's an outstanding leader, and we had our FCS, Family and Community Services, social services, if you will, at the table to deal with the pandemic since January. We recognize that there's public health implications physically, there's financial implications, but there's also mental health implications. And so whenever I see Bree, I corner and say, are you on top of this? And thankfully, we've had a lot of expertise we gained through some of the calamities in Fort McMurray. And we know we actually haven't even seen all the end result of what these mental health stressors are. A lot of it is delayed, just the nature. People are focused on the here and now and financial issues, and then some of the emotional issues hit them later. So We have a very well-tooled FCS department that has a strategy for all this. And I don't want to minimize at all the strain on people, you know, not getting your recreation activities in, dealing with childcare, dealing with job loss. We have free counseling at our Family and Community Services. You can access that at strathcona.ca. Telephone numbers are all there. We're ready and standing by to help people through this crisis.
Thank you so much. That's very important at this time with the severity of this pandemic. I have a question here. Are you able to provide us with any understanding as to the municipality's input in conversations with the province when they are looking at changing health measures? Do you have a voice in this process? Sorry about that question. The chat's getting busy now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, do we have a voice? We have a voice, but it's a voice that's similar to when you go to the doctor, right? I mean, the doctor is kind of holding the cards there. And we talk to Alberta Health Services daily. I mentioned Chief Hutton and his team. But we don't want to get into a debate about, you know, what the best public health measure is when that clearly is sitting with the province. They have the expertise there. There is some gray areas where we can provide our own input and make our own decision, but generally the default is, you know, if I go to the doctor, he says, look, you got to take some weight off. I got to take some weight off. It's just how it is. And so it's been a very professional relationship. We haven't thankfully been dragged into the politics. Now, I can tell you, masking is a huge political problem. And I got more emails on masking than taxes. That to me is the standard. If you can break taxes, you're doing something. So masking is something that you'd have the wisdom of Solomon to get through. Very difficult, but generally, very professional relationship. Nothing negative to say about Alberta Health Services.
Okay, thank you for that, Mayor Frank. I have a question here asking if the county has numbers on how many businesses have fallen due to COVID-19. And is there any plans in the budget or other discussions to help businesses, small businesses?
I don't have statistics on that. And I know, Todd, whenever I see you, I always check in. Maybe you have some more information. I'm not sure. I know it's been precarious. We want to do whatever we can to enable small and medium-sized business. We find that one of the best programs that does directly help them is the Shop Local program. Our economic development team, headed by Shane Olson, has worked very hard with the Chamber to promote that program, where you can continue to do that. And as I said to the earlier question about the taxes, you know, if it's not that effective with the dollars are going outside the county, we want them to stay here. So any program that that we have faith in that's going to deliver results to local businesses, we're all ears. Right now, it's Shop Local, but Todd, we're always open to hear other ideas.
Thank you for that, Mayor Frank. As you mentioned, Shop Local, you've been a huge proponent of it. And we at the Chamber have led the way in many chambers around the province on that, and many have adopted some of the systems that we've put in place for that, because how important it is for local businesses to still have an income at this time. Could you tell us a little bit about the things that council has done for Shop Local? And yes, we sure do appreciate what economic development is doing in partnership with us. You may see a lot of advertising in the Sherwood Park News. That's a joint project between economic development in Strathcona County and the Chamber of Commerce. And we appreciate that support in that area.
Yeah, we've given full authority to Shane and Economic Development to make that program work. And they're really spearheading it. We've done a lot of work putting resources together to make sure they're available to the business community, how to interact with the provincial and federal government, how to access those programs. We want to get the financial aid that's available. And I'll be honest, as I said, the feds have all the money. We cannot run a deficit in Strathcona County. So we do what we can in terms of putting budget monies into our economic development to ensure that we have a healthy business community. We're extremely proud of our industry, and the SIA, Strathcona Industrial Association, and Alberta Industrial Heartland Association are second to none in the entire country. And not only that, and when I say second to none, I mean in terms of leading businesses and being good corporate citizens, but also environmental responsibility. And so all kinds of great news coming out of there. And I mean, I don't know if anybody watched my Facebook Live. You probably have more important things to do, but on top of everything that's going on here, we're probably going to become the next hydrogen node in Western Canada and the country. And we have the resources here, we have the expertise here, and hydrogen's a clean source of energy. So there's lots of reasons for hope in Strathcona County.
Thank you, Mayor Frank. So we have 2 minutes left. I was wondering, Mayor Frank, if you had any closing remarks, and if you would proceed with those, and I'll close after you finish with your closing remarks.
Thank you, Todd. I want to thank again governance with council. We've had a lot of debates. I think overall we've been civil. There's been a few times when emotions have got the better of us, but I think everybody's governing for the good of Strathcona County. So I'm thankful for that. After 3 years, we can still talk to each other, so that's good. And we can debate, we can move issues forward, more importantly. Administration, I've had nothing to say but thank you. We've thrown a lot at them. They've come forward with innovative ideas. They've had to, in 2018, send 1/3 of our workforce home overnight, literally. And by the way, we said, make sure services continue. And they did. And then they took us through COVID-19. And I want to highlight our finance department, because this all falls apart without a strong financial base. And to the public, stick with the COVID program. We're going to have a tough couple of months. We are going to get through it. If any community can, it's this one. But that vaccine is coming.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So thank you, Mayor Frank. On behalf of our chamber members, residents, and all guests today, we want to thank you and all of council for your guidance and leadership during these very challenging times. We also would like to thank all of the county's administration as well for delivering the services to our residents, and it's very much appreciated. Thank you to all participants online today for joining. We will have a recorded version of today's address on our chamber website by 3 p.m. today, and please let others know they can watch at their pleasure. To all, take care, stay safe, and be kind. Thank you very much.